President Trump says he thinks Russia's Vladimir Putin is ready to make a deal to end the war in Ukraine. This is less than 24 hours before a historic summit between the two presidents. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more on the upcoming meeting.
Let's see how the talks go. We're hopeful. We want there to be a peace. We're going to do everything we can to achieve one.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Thursday saying the U.S. is doing its best in working toward peace in Ukraine. President Trump is set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday in Alaska. Rubio commented on the goals of the summit.
There'll have to be some conversation about security guarantees. There'll have to be some conversation about, territorial disputes and claims and what they're fighting over. All these things will be part of a comprehensive thing. But I think the president's hope is to achieve some stoppage of fighting so that those conversations can happen.
Also on Thursday, Trump said he thinks Russia is ready to find an agreement to end the fighting. The president told Fox News, "I think he's going to make a deal." But he added, "I don't know that we're going to get an immediate ceasefire." Trump says Friday's meeting might pave the way for a second summit, which would include Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Meanwhile in Russia, Putin on Thursday suggesting Washington and Moscow could make a deal on nuclear arms control.
At the next stage, we might reach agreements in the area of control over strategic offensive weapons.
He added that the U.S. is making a sincere effort to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. Putin says the Trump administration is trying to end the crisis and reach agreements that are in the interest of all parties involved in the conflict. And the Kremlin released a schedule for Friday's summit. The meeting in Alaska will begin at 11:30 a.m. local time on Friday. That's 3:30 Eastern time. The two leaders will start with a one-on-one session, followed by talks between their full delegations. According to Russia, Trump and Putin are scheduled to hold a joint press conference after the talks. It's not clear yet what time the presser is expected to start. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Joining us now for analysis of President Trump's upcoming meeting with Russia's President Putin is Armen Kurdian, foreign policy and national security analyst and retired U.S. Navy captain. Good afternoon, Armen. So Trump warned of very severe consequences if Putin refuses to end the war after this summit. What would you say? What is your best guess of what those consequences might be?
Well, Don, honestly, I think that this summit might be more effective if Trump had actually imposed some of these sanctions. That way, Putin would have something additional that he would want to work towards actually eliminating. I think basically Putin is going to inveigle and obfuscate his way to try to delay any imposition of some of these sanctions. I think what we're looking at are, first of all, maybe secondary sanctions on countries that buy oil from Russia. That's number one. Number two, I think you want to sanction a lot of maybe Russian oligarchs, a lot of businessmen, a lot of his supporters who perhaps have assets outside the country, although I think over $300 billion of Russian assets have already been frozen. Perhaps something that's rather draconian is taking Russia off of the petrodollar market. You have a way of actually eliminating their ability to do banking in US dollars, which would really slow things down for them. But right now, he's still able to finance his industry internally. He's borrowing money. He's pushing his economy all the way to the limit to build drones, to build artillery, and all of this war machine that's going into Ukraine, whereas the West is not nearly as focused on the war machine, although we have 10, 20 times, 50 times the economic might that Russia has on its own. So based on the disparity, some of these factors, we're still kind of even out here. But really, I think we need to have more than just threats. We need to have Putin under more pressure before we actually go into this summit.
So are you saying pressure is the key here? At this point, do we know what exactly could convince Putin to end the war he started on Ukraine?
Well, I think number one, if he is unable to continue to finance, for example, all these drones, all these weapons he's building at a rate 20, 30 times of what he was doing when he was first went into the war, maybe unable to pay, say, the North Korean soldiers that are coming in. If he doesn't have that money, and a lot of his money is coming from outside the country, when Russia's buying oil, you have other countries in the world that are buying oil. Maybe they're on their border of Russia or very close, and they want to maintain good neighbors. But what Trump is doing domestically in terms of U.S. energy production, for example, and expanding LNG exports to Europe and expanding those sales, that's basically money that's not going to go into Putin's pocket. That is going to be a big hit to him. It's not going to be a critical hit, but it's going to be a big hit. If we can continue to do that and be the world's preeminent non-OPEC supplier of energy, that, I think, more than anything, is going to bring countries like Russia and Iran, and to a second degree, China and North Korea to heel, because now they may have to buy energy internally at greatly discounted prices. And that's going to be an impact to those countries as well that are selling that energy. And we need to get our Western powers and other neutral nations on board with these types of sanctions and these types of economic pressure that goes onto Putin. So it is, quite frankly, the way you end this war is you starve Putin of money to basically fund his war machine. And then you continue to support Ukraine with not just high-tech weapons, which are frankly a little hard to build and we're slow at getting them out, but a lot of the basic stuff that the Ukrainians need: uniforms, small artillery, small arms, basic artillery, vehicles, other types of logistic equipment, construction equipment, that basic kind of stuff, which we can churn out a lot faster, which will help support the basis and fundamental roots of the Ukrainian war effort.
Right, that's a good point you make there, Armin. And if we're looking at the meeting and who's attending, for example, Russia's foreign minister, or rather Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Defense, Minister of Finance, and others, does that tell us about any potential signals about how Russia is prioritizing this meeting? What are its priorities?
I think what it says is they're basically going in, they're probably all unified. Putin surrounds himself with loyalists, at least in his inner circle. I don't know about the rest of the government. Perhaps, as talk about what the U.S. can do, finding maybe some folks with a sympathetic ear in the Russian government and trying to get some kind of information operations into them to try to end this war that way internally. But frankly, they're going to be there to try to tell him how to respond to a lot of the U.S. counter operations. This is basically going to be, a sword fight in Alaska. You got a couple of major world leaders that are going to be out there fencing, trying to find an advantage. And, it's going to be, a parry, stab, parry, and try to come to a conclusion. But the only way that I think there can be any success is if, at the very least, if we're not going to impose sanctions ahead of time, then Trump needs to say either we come out of here with a ceasefire within 24 or 48 hours. It can be unconditional. We just sort of stop the fighting, or else the sanctions go in place. I don't believe that Putin. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
I was just wondering, you were talking about success there. Are you optimistic for what might come out of the meeting?
Actually, I'm not. I'm not optimistic whatsoever about what might actually come out of this meeting. I think Putin is going to say whatever he can to try to extend things. He's going to continue to try to obfuscate. He's going to say one thing. He's going to do another. And I think, Trump has done an incredible job in his short time as president. He's brought four other local conflicts to an end. I mean, that is saying something. That is a heck of a lot more than what the previous administration has actually done. But every U.S. leader, going back to George W. Bush and Clinton, have not managed Russia the way that they need to be managed. Russia understands strength. Russia understands action. They don't necessarily understand talk. Well, I would say they don't understand talk. They do understand talk, because Putin sees Trump's desire and willingness and strong wanting to make a deal as his weakness. And I think he's going to use that. And as a secondary effect, it's Trump's ego. I made a deal. I brought this to an end. Trump is using that against him kind of psychologically. And I don't know if Trump really fully understands what is actually happening, because in all the other conflicts that he's been able to resolve this year, there has been a willingness on both sides to end fighting. They didn't want to expand it. There is not that on this side of Russia. And maybe Trump realizes that, but I don't know if he fully understands that Putin is trying to use his own ego against him, if you will, to try to end this conflict.
So Trump has suggested swapping territory, but Zelensky has publicly pushed back against the idea of ceding territory to Russia. How do you think this idea of territorial concessions, how is it going to play out?
I don't think it's going to play out very well. I would not be negotiating in public or making those kinds of public comments. If you go back in history, 5,000 years, whether you're right or whether you're wrong, whether you're on the side of good or on the side of evil, the fact of the matter is when you take territory and you control it with your army and nobody can take it away from you, it belongs to you. Whether or not it's legally recognized or whatever, it belongs to you. And Russia has taken it and they control it. They don't necessarily legally haven't annexed it. It's not recognized in the eyes of the world, but they control it. And the only way to get them off of there is to give them something else that makes them want to voluntarily leave or to forcibly expel them. And that the forcible expulsion hasn't happened, although it's come at an exceptionally heavy price, probably 50 times heavier than Putin actually thought it was actually going to be. So if there is any kind of exchange or other types, maybe buffer zones or demilitarized zones, that's going to have to be decided by the Ukrainian people. Zelensky is not going to make that decision on his own. I'm sure he's going to want the large majority, if not unanimous consent from his own parliament, his supporters and his detractors to agree to that. That is not something that you want to kind of make a decision. Yeah, I'm giving up part of my country. I mean, the country could actually break up in a civil war and actually make things worse. So it's, Russia is very happy to have what they have. They want to take more. Ukraine doesn't want to give anything up. And as you can see, there is a lot of space between those two sides.
Okay, just one last thing, and a follow-up of what you said earlier about you not being very optimistic about what might come out of this meeting. How much do you think the results of this meeting could impact overall peace negotiations?
Well, just the fact that they're actually talking, I mean, if you want to find any kind of silver lining, is a positive. But this kind of summit, it needs to be more than just the U.S. and Russia and Ukraine. All the other countries with a vested interest in seeing this war stop, every government in Europe needs to be fully involved, needs to be applying greater pressure, needs to be applying diplomatic pressure. Perhaps if there was some larger summit, I'm thinking, do you have 30, 40, 50 world leaders coming together to try to end this war, find a way to stop it and make it end, and spend a week doing it and with an agenda or thoughts. It might take that kind of no holds barred, all out diplomatic effort on the part of the global community as a whole to end this conflict, because thousands of lives are being lost, almost 1 million total on both sides. That the human toll has been terrible, and it's destabilizing. It's destabilizing the world. A lot of the U.S. industrial capacity is going into this war, fighting a war that is not ours, that should never have started in the first place. And that, I think, is something that everybody has got to remember, that this is a mess that Trump inherited, and he's trying to do the best he can to try to end it.
Right, and we'll find out how it goes in less than 24 hours. And Trump said earlier as well, he'll know in the first few minutes of the meeting how it's going to go. All right,
That's
Armin,
exactly
it's
right.
always great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Don. Have a great day.
In the city of Anchorage, the mayor says the city is excited